A massive welcome to Marti, to Jamie, to Joe from the LA CSC who join us here on CSC Stories, where we speak with Celtic supporters across the globe to hear the inside stories behind their club. Lads, great to have you with us here today on the Celtic Exchange. Joe, I'll come to you first to get us started. Do you want to tell us a story of how the LA CSC first came to be?
Yeah, the CSC in Los Angeles was formed, I think, around the late 50s, early 60s. That's my guess. And then, because there is photos floating around on the internet of Andy Rock and all the older members, Billy Rock, around about, I'd say it was Milan. It looks with the clothing and the attire, they've got the photographs. I would say it's Milan. So they've always had it since round about then. And then it kind of died out around about, I think, around about mid-70s. And then when I moved to LA in 87, I knew there was a club here, but I didn't really know anybody. So I done a bit of searching and I found a few of the older members. And then I said, well, why don't we get back up and running? But so when we did that, this was around about 87. And then we started what we used to do is we would get videos sent out from Celtic Supporters Association, a guy called Jim Divers. And it was weird. They used to tape the games on a Saturday, the highlights, BBC and all that. Then he would mail them the Monday. Now we'd pay one of the fast carriers, DHL or something, to get here for the Tuesday or Wednesday. Then somebody would go down to the post office, pick it up. But we had to buy it. Was weird. Because America is on the VHS tapes on a different system from the UK. So we had to go there and buy it. We didn't notice that we got the first one. We had to go and buy a TV. It's like 50 guys looking at a TV. We had to go and buy a TV, which is a thing in the back called a vertical hold, which you turned and it stopped the film from rotating too quick.
Okay.
And that's how we got so when a lot of these guys that I said when I came, they hadn't actually they used to get the newspapers and we used to get the shortwave radio. There was no internet in them days. And what we used to do is go to somebody's house at that stage. I used to carry this TV about with me and the videotape, the machine and the TV. And whoever's house we went to, Tommy Loves or Andy Rocks or whoever it may be. And we would plug it in. There were about 50 guys on there sitting with carry-outs and what. And a lot of these older guys, the guys that had been here since the 50s and the 40s, they'd actually never saw Celtic playing unless because people didn't go home in them days. You know, there wasn't like travellers nowadays. You can go to LAX and jump in a plane. For them, it was a big deal to try and get back to Scotland. So they were amazed they could actually see Celtic. So one of the first big games that we did, what we actually saw was the one Joe Miller scored against Rangers in the 1-0 Scottish Cup final.
Yeah,
there were probably about 100 guys at that game. They couldn't believe they were actually seeing this game 3 days later. Well, you felt you were at the game because we were all shouting and cheering and singing and all drunk. Because I guess for them it's the first time they saw Celtic win a trophy. A lot of these guys on a video system, you know what I mean? So it was that was the background of it. And then from there we progressed to a guy just around about the same year. Yeah, I think it was 87. A guy called Colin McCabe bought a pub called the Irish Rover, and so we used to go there and watch the thing with the TV and all that. And then that around about 88, we started getting the satellite games, but they were very expensive. One of the Rangers games were like, we only got 4 games a year, or games we could pick. They were like $3,000 then a game, right. And so we had to get everybody to put in. We needed like 100 guys at $30 to cover the cost of whatever the costs were at that time. So we got enough guys to cover them. We never made any money, and some guys would chip in a wee bit more. Some guys maybe couldn't afford it because I think it was 20 or 30 bucks we had to charge. It was a lot. And that was wages for a lot of guys. You know what I mean? So, so we done that. That was around about 88, and then we just as the internet kept changing over the years, but it was more English football they showed the carriers, and then Setanta came in round about I would say maybe the early 90s. Setanta came in, and it was Setanta Island, and it was lucky for us because the guy that was running the show lived in San Francisco, so it was easy for us to communicate with him time wise on the phone and all that. So we done a deal with them, and by that time we joined the federation. So the deal what they'd set up with Setanta was that if we had 50 clubs in the US or 60 clubs, whatever it was, then we could do it as a package. We'd pay this guy, say, like, I don't know, say 10 grand a game or something, whatever the hell it was. And we would then Tam Donnelly and the guys who ran the federation would say, okay, each club will pay this amount. And what we try to do for the smaller clubs, like the New Orleans club and a lot of the smaller clubs, we say, well, the bigger clubs, because I think they made 100 members in Los Angeles. Maybe Toronto had 100 members and Bramalea. And so we said, okay, maybe they can pay a bit more. So that's how we kind of started off. The background to the LA club, and our club just got bigger and bigger till the COVID thing hit. So
yeah, and I'm sure that had a huge impact across the board. Joe, take us forward then. So obviously you've given us the background there, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You weren't there in the 50s. Some folks say you were. It's a bit debatable if you were.
No, I was there in body and spirit. They had the club was here, but then they had a club called the Scottish Club, the Scots Club down in Santa Monica, and it was a shortwave radio. They had to put it on the shortwave radio, so they go down there in the mornings, 7 in the morning with a shortwave radio, and they're all the crackling, and it would cut out and cut in, and you would try and get the score. And then even back in them days when I first came here, we had to. The midweek games, we'd be at work, so we had to call one of the old guys that retired who listened to the shortwave. We'd call him like 2 in the afternoon, our time, and say, what was the score in the Wednesday game? And he would give us if the BBC would do something on it.
Yeah.
Because even trying to phone back home and all that in them days, it was very expensive. So
no doubt. And before I get to Marty and Jamie for a bit of their chat on how their experiences have been, Joe, how different is it now? So we're in 2025. How different is it now to go and watch a game at the CSC compared to your own earliest memories?
I think it's complacent now with the supporters, because guys, like a lot of guys just don't show up. I'll watch it at home. Whereas back then, you couldn't watch it anywhere in the world, so you had to go to the Los Angeles CSC if you were in LA. So they were always had big turnouts, and then when we started getting the live games, the atmosphere was amazing. You know, because you had a lot of these when we first started getting the satellite beaming in the live games. These guys were astounded that they could actually see Celtic. They were like, man, I can see family and everything there. it was like, I guess, landing in moon to some people. You know, it was a strange atmosphere the first couple of games. Even for myself to be like 7,000 miles away, sitting watching Celtic live was like, wow, this is amazing. So it had a great atmosphere then. I'd say probably average game would be 60 to 70, maybe 100 guys.
Yeah.
I'd say, but what we did is we had to, because of the finance, we had to pick selected games. So we'd maybe like if we had a big European game, I always remember like we played Dortmund in the quarters or one of the things of the Champions League or what it may have been the Champions League or the European Cup, I can't remember. And we go to that game, so that was a big game, big deal for to see a European game. So that was we had a great atmosphere. It was fun, and plus the club then when it would I'd say that everybody came, so then we used to barbecues and go to the beach and do all the. It was more like a social club, really. You know, even though it was run out of the Irish Rover, it was more like a social club. Then the guys used to go in there after work. A lot of guys go in for a pint after work. So it was more of like even though it was a pub, it was more like a social club, really. So
yeah, good stuff. Joe, thanks for giving us the kind of intro and the background. Marty, obviously, yourself and Jamie, you can tell me more in a second about your roles. You guys have taken on different roles at the CSC as of this year. But in stark contrast to some of the challenges that Joe and some of the members he's mentioned over the years, obviously we're now in a world where things are far more connected, you know, Celtic TV and otherwise, and we can screen every game. You know, there's no longer the challenges of handpicking maybe 4 games a season and the costs there. So what does life look like now? What's the club kind of set up as? Where do you guys operate from and some of those key details?
So this season we moved to a new bar. For I think the last 24, 25 years we've been at Jocks or Dailies in Culver City. Circumstances kind of dictated we had to move. Our bartender, a guy called Eugene, who had been opening up for us for a bunch of years, he went back to Ireland, and we essentially didn't really have anyone that could open. Also, the bar was becoming like a English Premier League hellhole, and they were overtaking our games. But listen, that's also, you know, a bit like what Joe said. A lot of our boys had come complacent, and there was more of them, which means they get more rights and they spend more money in the bar and all that kind of thing. So Andy Rock, who Joe had referenced, he bought a bar, this music bar in Santa Monica, 5 blocks from the beach, and it's became our new home this year. So we've got the run of the place because it doesn't open till 5 p.m. in the afternoon. It's been great for us. We're still figuring it out. We're still trying to get the TVs and the equipment working, and we just wanted to give it a season because, again, it's a music bar. It's not a football bar. So we moved there last July. We started there. It's been good. It took a little bit of time to get some people away from the Joxers thing. People still were going there trying to find it.
Yeah.
Jamie and I have been pounding it on social media as best as we can, just making sure we're always we over communicate, and it's hard as well, especially with our club. There's not too many young guys, so the technology stuff. So we email, we post on all the social channels. I'm practically about to go and start knocking on people's doors to get them to come. That's the level we need to get to at some point. But
yeah.
It's been good. We've had some really big turnouts this year. We've had some really low turnouts. It just depends. A lot of these guys probably get priced out of living in LA, and they've moved out. They've moved further out. Some guys live an hour away. Some are an hour and a half away. I think Joe's pretty maybe 45 minutes away as well. So the traffic also can dictate things in LA as well. We're lucky at the time that we get the games. There's no traffic really, to be honest. Midweek games are a nightmare. You can be stuck for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and try to get home after the game when a Champions League game finishes at 2 p.m. So a lot of things dictate how many people come and watch the games. I think we had about 70 or 80 at one game this season. Might have been the Aberdeen semi-final. I think it's one of the games that was absolutely packed to the rafters because I think it was an 11 a.m. kickoff for us, or a 10:30 kickoff, something like that. So a lot of it was dictated by the kickoff times, the complacency that Joe spoke about, which you can't really argue with. It's and also just modern day society makes it a bit different from Joe. We've all got things to do. Like yesterday, I had to leave the second the final whistle went to go and meet my wife and daughter. Jamie, I think, had to leave instantly as well. And there's not Joe might disagree with me here, but there's not as much of a drinking culture here as there was when I was a member of the New York club for 10 years. That was
young ones don't drink.
The young ones don't drink anymore. So it's not as much of a drinking culture here as the way I've seen it in other clubs. Is probably the best way. So that's kind of where we're at today. In terms of how it looks, it's still strong. We've still got the most members we've ever had post-COVID, which is about 45 paid members, which is big for us. Every away game's on Paramount Plus, so you can just sit in your house and get it if you want. We've got the Club Celtic TV, obviously. We make it work. We just make it work. That's kind of the thing. And we've got, it's us three, plus there's Andy Rock and a guy, Jim, as well, Jim's been a part of the club for years, and so's Andy. And between us all, we just make it work. Sure, Jamie and I are the presidents, but it's not really. We just all make it work, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. I was speaking to the guys in Pittsburgh just the other day, Sean, Clinton, and Patrick, and a similar vibe in terms of the various guys there had their various roles, but it's very much a case of all hands to the pump, isn't it? There's so many different roles required, for a match day and beyond, and even the question of drinking culture come into play as well. So, as Joe mentioned, it's a social as much as anything. Yes, it's watching Celtic primarily, but it's catching up with folks and connecting with folks, and and everything that goes with that. Yeah. The challenge for the guy in Pittsburgh was that they can't get a drink till 9 a.m. You guys are sometimes. We can get a drink. At 4 and 5 in the morning.
You can get a drink at 4 a.m. with us.
Fair enough, but they all bring their different challenges.
Just don't tell the Santa Monica local cops, and we'll be all right.
A couple of brown envelopes and you're good to go. Jamie, I'll come to you at the moment just in terms of some of the ongoing challenges, I guess. And Marti's highlighted some of the issues, whether it be maybe people getting complacent, English Premier League influence, the fact that folks can watch from home. But what do you see as the biggest challenges that you guys need to overcome to run a successful CSC out there?
Yeah, I think the location, LA is 90 odd cities, and sometimes my commute to the club can be 20 minutes, and then on a weekday after a Champions League game, it can take me an hour and a half to get home. So definitely location is tough. Marti and I were both members at the New York Celtic Supporters Club, #1 Fenian Boys, Jack Dempsey's, and that's literally in the middle of Manhattan. So you just got this, you just got everyone finishing work that can pop in after that. You have a lot of people visiting, got a lot of Scottish and Irish people visiting as well, so they always stop into that CSC. So definitely there's that aspect of it. In terms of location, you've got the there's not as big as Irish and Scottish diaspora here as well. Again, the east coast of America, you can't move for an Irish, someone who claims to be Irish at least, and or Scottish. So you don't have that quite as much here on the west coast. And then also, I mean, it's sort of, as Marty said, there's a complacency, but it's more I feel as a social club. The reason why we're passionate about doing this is keeping our culture alive and keeping Celtic at the front of everyone's minds. But it's way easier to tap back into culture now. As Joe was saying, you couldn't even necessarily call home. Now you can watch every game online. Everyone's on WhatsApp groups. You don't feel like you're missing out as half as much as you used to as well. So there's definitely that aspect of it as well. You can watch every game, you can see every meme, you can connect with your family, your cousins, your mum, your dad, and your former CSCs as well. So there's definitely that aspect of it. But when we all come together, Marty said we had for the Aberdeen semi-final, we had sort of 70, 80 for the League Cup final as well. We had probably more numbers than that as well. So when people come together, it's fantastic, but it's just a little bit harder. We've tried to replicate a few things. We've been getting some breakfast together as well. We do serve booze, just don't, as Marty said, just don't tell any of the local police. But so there's definitely that. But that sort of social club element is probably disappeared a little bit, just because you're not missing home quite as much because you're so connected, and you can get home as well. I mean, I used to get home to a lot more games when I was in New York, but I still see Celtic 2 or 3 times living in LA as well. So.
Yeah, and I'm always keen to hear, and we'll kick on to this part of the recording just now, the background for each of you guys. So again, just to reference the Pittsburgh guys that I spoke to, what was really unique about Sean, Clinton and Patrick was that they are absolutely all, certainly of that part of the world, if not from the States in general, but most folks that we speak to from the various CSCs, whether that's in different parts of America or in Geneva or whatever, they've got some sort of route back to certainly Glasgow, if not Scotland, if not the UK. I can hear from Marty and Joe's accents, and we'll get to their story in just a moment. But what's your own background, Jamie? What first brought you to Celtic?
Yeah, I'm a McLaughlin, which is kind of a giveaway a little bit, but my parents are Irish, born in Scotland, so we didn't really have any choice. So you could probably trace back our Celtic lineage to great grandparents, I'm guessing. So I was born and raised in the southeast of England, in and around London, but I don't remember deciding to support Celtic. That was first game when I was 4, and I've got 30 first cousins that make sure I was brought up in the Celtic culture as well. So, no real choice, but I'm very glad it was decided for me.
Yeah, and it's a common theme that you don't quite get the choice. It's bestowed upon you, and I think that's just the way it goes for a lot of us. Joe, what about yourself? What's your own background there? How did you first come to be a Celtic fan? What was the influence there for you?
Well, my family's all Celtic supporters. My dad, my granddad, and we started off in Govan. In Glasgow. So we were from there. The family was from originally. And my dad used to take me to the games when I was I would say 5 or 6. I think the earliest one of the early games I remember was the 65 Cup final when Billy McNeil scored. We beat Dunfermline 3-2.
Yeah. That
was kind of one of the first games I remember as a kid. It's the first win the cup. And then I was fortunate, and I went to Lady of Lords School in Paisley Road West. And when I always remember my dad come home one day from work and he says, "Oh, we're going to the European Cup final in 1970. I think I was the only guy from the school that went. I was like, "What?" I said, because as a wee boy, I was mad about it. I had Jimmy Johnston all over the walls and all the. You just I used to buy the Citizen in the evening times just to get the poster.
Okay.
So the family's always been, cousins are all Celtic supporters. Then as you grow up, and then we used to go on the Celtic Supporters Clubs for Govan. So there was different. Like Govan Emerald, and there was different clubs. My dad would be, he'd be members of clubs, and then they'd go to change pubs, and he'd be a member of that club. So we always went in. My uncles, it was a whole family. It was a family thing, So they're there, and then cousins and all that. So we always met on Saturday, went to the game, and then we stand outside the pub with the Coca-Cola and the bag of crisps, and wait. And then when the bus would show up, half an hour before it left, we could sit in the bus. Even if it was raining, we still had to stand outside. They wouldn't let you in as a kid in them days. So that's the background. And then, as I say, I was fortunate. I was one of the few. I don't think I saw too many kids in Milan, but I was fortunate enough to go to Milan. I'd have been, what then, 12 then, I think. Yeah, 12. So it was a great experience, just and then after that when I was in Glasgow, I joined the West End. Celtic Supporters Club was over in the West End. I was run out the Doublet Bar at that time.
Yeah.
And we used to go on the bus for the Glasgow University bus. A guy called Joe Dunn ran that. So we used to go on that with them. And then I came to America, and that was, when I got to America, I was like, where's the Celtic Club? And they were like, well, it's here, but it's dormant. And I said, well, no more. We need to get this back on track. So that was kind of how that came about.
How much did you miss Celtic when you moved away, Joe? And have you been able to make it back at times over the years?
Oh, it was a nightmare. Oh, yeah. Because even as I say, then communication was the hard part. It was funny, like when somebody would go home, we'd say, you have to get into the Celtic shop or Celtic Park. Do you remember the wee green books?
Yeah.
Now, we used to buy 50 of them. So everybody knew it, because that's told. Because then in them days the games didn't change. It was a Saturday at 3 o'clock or a Wednesday at 7:30.
Yeah.
So that's how we knew when the games were on, because you don't have a way of finding out. So I've missed a lot. Yeah, I think my biggest regret would be the centenary year.
Yeah.
Because I was in America then, and I just got here a year. You couldn't afford to go home and all that in them days. So that was probably my biggest regret. The centenary year, and then as I say out with that, I would say that Seville was we took about from the LA club at 22 or 23 to Seville, which was a lot of guys them days. And it was fortunate we all got tickets just by this guy and that guy and this, So we got ours from. I don't remember the goalkeeper, Brotto. His name was Brotto or something. Played with
Javi Sanchez Brotto. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope I meet him again. He conned the hell out of that wee guy. What am I doing the next time I meet him?
Yeah.
You end up paying him nearly €500 for a ticket.
For one ticket?
Because he got 6 tickets. We didn't know this then. Every player that played, I believe, got 6 tickets. I could be wrong, but I think it was 6.
Right.
And he was in our hotel. And the last guy used to play with Celtic. He says, he's looking for tickets. He says, I've got 6. I said, well, maybe they're fake. Like we have a foreign accent. You have to be careful if you're forgiven. You go, maybe this guy's a con man. So he says, I said, they're real. But it was fortunate as one of the guys that was off forgiven. He had a dummy one. So we could put the two of them together and look at them. The £10 one and the fight. And there's a wee bit of difference. The guy said, no, and he was telling us how we got the tickets. So we ended up with giving the $3,000 and we got the 6 tickets.
Right.
And Andy Rock got very lucky in Seville. Andy was... He joined the lotto thing. We all joined it, but some got picked. Andy joined it. He got 6 in the lotto. One of the guys fell. So that's with 12 tickets there, and then the rest is just got them by paying over the odds and when we got to Seville. So we got to Seville. We were there for 10 days. We got there the week. The game was a Thursday, so we got there I think we got there the Wednesday before. So that was 7 or 8 days, and then we never got back to the following Tuesday. So.
Right.
But it was an amazing trip. I just hope in my lifetime I get to another European final.
I hope so. I really do.
Yeah, I wouldn't care if it's a Conference League. I don't care what one it is, as long as we get to one.
Yeah,
I go to a Champions League every year and abroad. But even though you're going there, there's only 2,000 and 3,000. I was at Dortmund when we lost there, fucking 6-1 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But even if you go there's only 3,000 or 4,000 there. But to see Seville, you go, man, look at this, 100,000 or whatever the hell it was, the big concerts and and the big concert in the park and all that. So I just hope my lifetime. I'm 68 now, so I just hope that the Brendan can pull something out of the bag and get to another one before I go.
Yeah, here's hoping. I
would take a European final over winning the league. I'll be honest with you, just for being selfish.
I think a lot of folk would. I spoke to a fella called Pat Woods a number of weeks ago now. Pat Woods is quite a famous Celtic historian, club historian.
I know he is, yeah.
And Pat's got the unique accolade of being in Lisbon 67, Milan 70, and Seville 2003. And he's only got 1 win out of 3. It's a kind of average strike rate from Pat. But hopefully Pat and others will get the opportunity to go there.
I'm the same. Yeah, I've been to 2 finals, never won one yet.
So you're the jinx, Joe. You're the problem here.
Yeah, yeah.
The other thing is, Javi Sanchez Brotto, I'm sure he's tuning in. I know he's an avid watcher of the show. If he is, I'll let him know that Joe
tell him I meet him. Tell him to never come to LA. I want my money back.
Right. I'll let him know. Marti, I'll come to you now. You've gone that kind of well-trodden path from Cumbernauld to New York to LA. Talk us through it.
Very, very well-known path, mate. Very well-known path. I grew up in Cumbernauld, went on the Cumbernauld number 1 Supporters Club, which my dad has been involved in since, I think, 79, or still involved in since 79.
Okay.
So went there, I remember 86 being my first season, because I remember seeing Danny McGrain play, and if I'm right, he was still playing in 86, or that was his final season, 85, 86 season maybe.
I think so.
My dad had season tickets in the main stand, and we used to you could jump in at that time. So I remember that. Home and away right up until the day I kind of left Scotland, to be honest. Going on the Cumbernauld bus everywhere. First European game, 95, Paris away, took the coach. Yeah. Then I had the craziest trip of my life in 96, Hamburg away on the coach, which there's a few stories that couldn't be told on a podcast that they done to me at 14 years old. Put it this way, they tried to make a man of me, shall we say, is all I'm going to say on that one.
Well,
the Cumbernauld boys know what I'm talking about if they're listening. Then left Scotland for London. So when I was down in London for a few years, I came back quite a lot, to be honest, because I had one of the boys for the Cumbernauld bus got me on the train. It was 20 quid down, 20 quid back in the sleeper. Let's just call it a cash in hand deal.
Right.
So I was able to travel up and down with him a lot for the games. I went to the Cock Tavern, watched a lot of the games when I lived in London down there. Great pub. Mm-hmm. Then the New York thing happened, went straight to Dempsey's. First game I got there was 10 years in New York, Dempsey's the whole time. Like Jamie said, when I lived in New York, I was back a lot in Scotland. I was a single guy, so it was easy to just jump in a flight on a Friday after work, watch the game, fly back on a Monday. I was also lucky I had a pal at United Airlines and I had a buddy pass, so used to just pay, I think it was like $100 each way at the time to jump over, jump back. Made it really easy. I'd also got a bunch of European games when I lived in New York. Again, just the ease of it. Mm-hmm. COVID happened and I ended up in LA. So came here. I'd watched a couple of games over my years in the LA club just when I was visiting for work. I'd go to Joxers and see the games. Started going to Joxers during the I was going to say 10 in a row season, but it wasn't a 10 in a row. So started going to Joxers that season. Or just before that season, I think it was. And then I've been going down, and then Jamie and I took over the presidency this season as James had done a great job. He stepped down at the end of last season. He'd been in a few years, took it over. So that's kind of my journey. Still get back. It's not as many games as now, because the journey back's a bit more. Now I've got a kid and stuff, it makes it a bit harder. My wife's great though. If there's ever a game I want to go to, she just says, go for it. I think I did 3 games over the Christmas period just now. I might make the cup final this year, still debating, because my dad decided to have his 65th birthday the following weekend, being selfish he is, when he could have had it the cup final weekend, it would have been good. So that's how I ended up out here. Pretty passionate about Celtic. I think the older I become, the after I become about Celtic, which, when you've got a career and stuff as well, it's weird that you can still be as passionate and as into it as we are. And, I think that's one thing with all the boys here. We're always just excited for the next game. I can't watch a game for myself. I find it depressing. I want to be at the club. I want to be around Jamie, Joe and all the boys. Even when there is sometimes 5As, it's just better than sitting on the sofa in the dark watching a game,
Yeah, and I think that thing about as we all get older, I think we can all relate here in terms of, I would be guessing here that most of us, the 4 of us here, we're all football mad youngsters, all Celtic mad youngsters, and you think that might be something that maybe wears off as you get older, but it's the opposite. You get more into it and more obsessed and more passionate about it.
It gets a hold of you. No, because as I've said, I don't want to jump in Marti's conversation, but I'm talking about the same as I see these two with their kids now, and my kids are all grown up. They played football here and they've done different things. And now my grandkid, his team, LA Celtic under-7s, won the cup last week. So you're like, then the Americans are going, how are they called the Celtics? They're from Boston. It's a long story.
I'll tell you over a beer.
So there was 4 guys coaching the team, and I got them 4 tops at the Celtics shop, the training tops. Mm-hmm. The coach are all standing on the sideline with the Celtic training tops on. They're all going, what's that got to do with Boston? And then as we told them the story, I'm like, oh, soccer, that's what it is. So as the older you get, I think you get more into it, I think. Yeah, you realise, this is what it's a way of life, Celtic. It's not Not a sports team, I don't think. It's a way of life.
Absolutely, no doubt about that. Marti, I'm going to come to Jamie in a second, but if I can come back to you, you mentioned that you're fortunate enough at times to make it back from LA to Glasgow. So just as a quick snapshot, what is that like as a commute? What's the kind of times involved? I don't know, Joe mentioned 7,000 miles, give or take. You're right out there on the West Coast. What's it like trying to get back to Glasgow?
So for a Saturday game, which I've done a couple of times, Thursday night flight, there's I think there's 2 or 3 options. I like to take the earliest one, which gets you into Glasgow for lunchtime, roughly 1 or 2 p.m. I think is the earliest you can get into Glasgow. So typically we'd get in on a Friday. Usually meet my dad, my brother, and the guys, have a few beers, and then have the deepest, darkest sleep you could ever imagine from the bevy and being on the plane, and then up. Usually when we, if it's a cup final or a Glasgow derby, we'd all meet up somewhere before the game on a Saturday, and then out all day afterwards. I took my wife. My wife's Portuguese, from a big football family. Took her to a game versus them, the 3-2 game under Ange. And they wanted to see Jota, and of course they scored the goal, and she was in the bathroom and missed it, but we won 3-2. She had an amazing day. We were out all day. We always end up in a bar called the Cabin Bar in the Gallagate for karaoke. Best bar in Glasgow.
I've been in.
Still got the Christmas decorations up all year round.
Yeah, I know it.
She's always like astounded when she sees my dad and all the boys who are like in their 60s and they're 30 pints in and still standing at midnight, So
yeah,
it's a great experience. I love it. I love going home. Every time I watch Celtic, I'm homesick. I want to move closer to home eventually, not quite yet. Couldn't live in Scotland, I don't think, but somewhere. Lisbon sounds good, a couple of hours away. So good tax breaks as well in Lisbon.
So they say, but there's some effort. There's some effort to make that journey, for a game, cup final, Glasgow derby or otherwise. So fair play. It's a big journey. Jamie, I'll come to you now just to ask about the match day experience. Obviously, you guys do face the unavoidable challenge, I guess, of the time difference. The clocks have just changed here in the UK, so it's currently 8 hours ahead. We're 8 hours ahead of you guys. But out with that, what does a match day look like from start to finish? Is it Trip? Is that the name of the new bar? Yeah. What does it look like in Trip?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a Glasgow derby, that's usually 4 a.m., 4:30 a.m. So usually up at 3:30. Depends if my son wants to come, who's 3. So try and avoid those ones because getting them out of bed that early is a little bit early. We've got a few old boys that are part of the club. So Marti and I and Joe at times as well. We pick up some of the older boys, especially Jim, because we want to make sure they can get to the games, but don't crash any cars, basically. But especially at that time in the morning. So we usually try and get there about half an hour before kickoff. So let's say 4 a.m. People start coming in pretty early. Usually the out of towners are a little bit earlier, so we want to get there because occasionally we've had a few people who disappear because they didn't think it was on because it's we're not opening until 4:15 a.m. or something like that. So we try and get there a bit early, make sure everything's working, lights are on, and there's no sort of out of towners who don't realise to go to the back door. So if you're coming from out of town, please use the back door, not the front door. And then we usually get a good turnout for those Glasgow derbies, for example. When we have the big games, we've been bringing breakfast as well, just to sort of get people, just to make it worth their while as well. Where it's just coffee and some breakfast stuff as well. It's less of a chore when we win, which we do quite often. So I know during the sort of COVID season, getting up at 4 a.m, even if you weren't going to the club, was horrendous. But when you win, it makes it all the better. So it is a lot getting up at 3:30 in the morning to watch your team. But considering the amount of success we've had since Marti and I, for example, moved to LA, it's not been too much of a hardship, to be honest. The game a couple of weeks ago, which we lost, you're in a foul mood all day, and you're also very tired, and some people are hungover as well. So we try and put on a bit, make it worth the while for people to come, and people tend to hang around after those games a little bit more, just because you're happy, and it's so early anyway. Sometimes the games finish before 6 a.m, so you're just like, where do you go, sort of thing as well, which is pretty crazy. So those experiences are great. And then I guess the good thing is you've got the rest of your day to go about, but I much prefer the 10 a.m. kickoffs in New York, for example, when I lived there as well. But again, when you've got a winning team, it makes it a lot easier to be getting up at silly o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And what's the, just in terms of access, Jamie, is it members only, or can non-members attend, or did they drop your note on socials? What's the...
Yeah, no, we Jim, who mentioned a couple of times, would like everyone to pay every week, but we're very much about bringing as much of the community together, especially out of towners. So anyone who's a Celtic supporter, anyone who's a non-Rangers supporter is welcome. We had an Aberdeen fan for a recent game as well, and we've had some non-Celtic fans turn up. That's absolutely fine. If you're coming regularly, then you can sub. You can pay a sub, but if you're coming as a one-off or every couple of a couple of times a season, that's absolutely fine. So everyone's welcome, and just keep an eye on our Twitter and Instagram, because we're not open for every midweek game, for example, just because of traffic and all that. But every Champions League game, every Glasgow derby, every big cup game, and then we're also we're likely to be open if we're going to win the league and it's against whether it's before the split or after the split. If we're going to win the league and it's a 4 a.m. kickoff or 4:30, we're likely to open for that as well. But just keep an eye on the socials, because that's where we communicate the best.
Spot on, and we can link to the socials in the show notes for the episode, so we'll be sure to do that. But it's Trip on Lincoln Boulevard in Santa Monica, 5 blocks from the beach, so sounds like a good spot. And remember, go to the back door if you're visiting LA Bells. Joe, LA, synonymous with showbiz and glamour and stars and all that kind of stuff. Talk us through some of the more notable characters that might have visited the club over the years.
I think you should be asked what ones haven't visited the club. We've had everybody over the years, way back to the early days, it was a strange one. You used to come into the games and sit away with yourself. Remember that guy, an actor, Patrick McGugan, he did The Prisoner, a show called The Prisoner.
Yeah.
Okay.
He used to come in, he had a big boater hat thing on, and we were like, who is that guy? And then eventually we could see his face, it was him. It was Patrick McGugan, a lot of these guys you don't even know they're Celtic supporters. Mm-hmm. But actors wise, we've had everybody, and everybody could think of the Rod Stewarts to the I can't remember Tony Curran. Tony's in every week, so
right, yeah.
Them, I'm a B-lister though, Tony. Tino, he's a B-lister. We like to just make sure.
Don't let Tony know that.
Yeah, well,
what did Tony say to you yesterday? See, you've got a great face for radio.
So Tony,
a lot of them, yeah, most of them, and the Palmertinis, the Jimmy Kerrs, everybody is because there's a lot of actors in LA, and it's a big venue for musicians. A lot of them play the big arenas here. So a lot of them drop in when they're in town, and so everybody's been here.
Yeah.
Big Conley he was a good one.
Who, sorry?
Big Billy Conley, he was always good. He was always good company, and he'd always say wee things to people. We used to have a wee guy called Hugh McNee, and Hugh was a wee bit of a pit bull guy. He was always and he was a wee stocky guy. He looked like Barney Rubble. Big Conley used to persecute the hell out of him. So we have a lot of different ones like that, but it's been, they come in and just do their own thing, stand themselves and do what they do, and then they go, so that's really bad. Everybody's been in, really. So
yeah, and that's the thing, these guys are all stars in their own right, and Tony Curran, I know Martin Compton, I think he's, kind of
he's been in a few there, yeah.
But once you strip away the Hollywood aspect or the fame aspect, the thing in common is the Celtic thing, and that's something that everyone can connect on.
Exactly,
Marti, have you experienced some of these kind of guys, caught a beer with these guys over the years?
Well, Tony every week, but some of them, a few of them have bounced in. When I was in New York, it was similar as well. A bunch of the same guys. Mm-hmm. You get a lot of music guys coming in. The last couple of years, there's been a lot of young bands on tour would come in. Again, some of them might be famous. I don't even know half the time. But it's pretty constant with that. There's not been as many, I think, post-COVID. I think pre-COVID, it's changed a lot, and a lot of these guys maybe, are doing different things in different parts of the world. But there's some ones that are consistent, and it brings a profile up for the club, because they're always pretty willing for taking photos with the guys and what have you. And it's good having guys like Tony as well. Tony's always promoting the club on his social media and stuff. It helps us get, known we're there, and that we've not went away, even though we've moved venues. So that's kind of important as well for us, just having that extra help in promoting what we're trying to do. And again, end of the day, we're that Jamie mentioned it. We are a community. We have a bunch of older guys that we like to try and help out as well. We try to bring through younger people as well and watch the games. We've done a lot of charity work over the fires, which Jamie can touch on. What we've done for a specific member of the club who was affected. Jamie can tell you a bit about that. It's really important to hear that story. But mate, we're all for the community, and if anyone can help spread the word to the club. And the part that's been hard is trying to get everyone together for an event. We've been trying this season, thinking about it. We're not going to give up. We're still going to try and do something before the end of the season. It's just been challenging getting everyone in the one room at the same time to talk about it.
Yeah, and hopefully something comes together through that. Jamie, just on that then, so I find myself when doing these recordings with the various CSCs, charity always comes to the fore. It just seems to be a constant. It's very much synonymous with Celtic and Celtic's own charitable roots, but it seems to be something that the various CSCs absolutely take on board for themselves and take great pride in. So Marty's given us the prompt, but tell us about the work you've done during the fires and the story there.
Yeah. I mean that was pretty horrendous. I don't think there was anyone in the club that wasn't directly affected, or certainly had close friends affected and family. And so one of our members lost everything. Others were affected. So he's a really proud guy. He would have never asked for any help at all. But he's an integral part of our club. So we all, Joe, Marti, myself, and Jim, wanted to do something in a timely fashion as well. So we simply set up a GoFundMe. Promoted it on the socials, all that good stuff. But we were overwhelmed by the response from people. Maybe we shouldn't, because again, Celtic is we're founded on those charitable connotations. So, but it was incredible to see, and it wasn't just our membership that came together. I mean, we had checks coming in and cash coming in from our friends down in San Diego, our friends up in Portland, Chicago, Pittsburgh, Philly, of course New York, and then Australia, the clubs in Melbourne and Sydney, and of course Glasgow, and it was incredible. People, some people were donating $500, some people were donating $5, and it was incredible. We've raised, and we're still receiving money actually, but we've raised $15,000 so far, which is a considerable amount of money. And wanted to really take the opportunity to thank everyone for that as well, because it was it's incredible. I was with that member yesterday, and he thanked me again and us again. So, but it was unbelievable to see the people people were almost tracking us down to see how they could give us money. To be honest, it was incredible. So it was really and that sense of community and is even though we maybe don't see each other as much as we used to, is incredible. So again, wanted to thank everyone for that.
It's brilliant to hear that, Jamie, and also, and I say this in the most positive sense, it's not that surprising. It seems a very Celtic type thing to do, and as I say, charity is a word that comes to the fore a lot during these episodes. Community, absolutely, is another one. Marti, I'll pop back to you just briefly, because just in terms of that sense of community, as I've mentioned, we've picked up the CSC stories again in recent weeks, and I've been speaking to a lot of guys from the States and North America in general. Pittsburgh I mentioned. I'm speaking to Boston soon, Philly, various others, and it's been great to reconnect, with these various supporters groups. But what is the sense of community and the connection between all of you guys? Are you in close contact? Do you support each other and bounce off each other at different times?
Yep. So this part's pretty new to me, getting involved with other clubs. It started it was actually Stevie from the New York club that connected me onto this WhatsApp group with all the other presidents. Mm-hmm. Maybe 6 months ago, roughly 5-6 months ago. Okay. So first started talking about the merch stuff. We're trying to figure that out. Then it led into this other chat where every president's in just chatting about day-to-day stuff and things we're happy about, things we're not happy about, initiatives people might be doing. We shared the stuff about our member losing his house in the fire. All these guys were throwing money at it, which was incredible. They shared it. They were doing a hat around the club that weekend, all that stuff. So thanks to those guys. But just started building a relationship with these guys. And I know Joe's got his own network because he's been around the block and knows all these guys over the years. But for me, it's been great in the last, especially in the last 3-4 weeks, I've really been trying to get communication going with these guys. Mm-hmm. I've never been to a Celtic convention. Never really, honestly, be very honest, had any interest in going to one. Don't know why, but I just haven't. So Jamie and I will be going with all these guys this June in Vegas. So I'm sure I'll meet up with a lot of these people I've been talking to on in the group chat that I've never actually physically met. I know a couple of them. Again, some boys that I knew from New York and guys Joe's introduced me over the years. So it's good to start that network. We just done a thing this week with a bunch of the clubs. We're doing a scarf with all our logos on it. A silk scarf like the Green Brigade, the ones those guys make.
Yeah.
So it's something a bit different for us as well. We're not that good at the merch. We've done some T-shirts that Jamie's sporting right now, which was a T-shirt from
a model.
We just done it for members to start with. It's weirdly a lot of work. You don't think it is, but it becomes a lot of work even just making a T-shirt for members who are trying to pay you in cash and Venmo and all the different stuff. So, building a good relationship with these guys. Guys and girls, there's some girls involved as well, and just want to keep it up, keep helping each other out.
We also share a trip with Borussia Dortmund LA Supporters Club as well, who were very generous when this happened. And so we have obviously the other CSCs in America is natural, but we spent a lot of time with the Borussia Dortmund Supporters Club here as well, which was all great until obviously the 7-1 game. And then immediately reverted to digging up, the 1930s and 1940s history there. But other than that, it's been a really good relationship with those guys as well. I know, obviously Dortmund and Celtic have always had a bit in common over the years and stuff like that as well. So they're a good bunch. But again, very, very generous when the fires happened as well. Of course, they were affected themselves. So.
Yeah, it's great to hear that, and get to hear that, as I say, that sense of community coming through. Marti, I'll come back to you because you've mentioned in passing there about some of the challenges and frustrations that not just your own club, but the various, other clubs across America face. And I know a challenge, and correct me if I'm, kind of putting words in your mouth, but the lack of maybe support from the club itself. You've got your own community, and you guys, it sounds like you do some great things together and bounce off each other, but maybe a lack of support from Celtic as a club.
Yeah, I just feel they're missing a trick. They could really get more involved. And you can't speak to everyone, I get it, but there could be a collective forum where they listen and take on the ideas, because there's a lot of smart people at these clubs. A lot of these work in marketing, different PR, different stuff, and it's in the business world every day. And we're paid in our careers to do these kind of things. And Celtic as a brand, we think it's huge, right? We all think it's massive. It's not as massive as we think sometimes, right? And it could be. It really could be. I think when we came to America during the summer, that's the first time I've really heard Americans who I know are really English football daft, oh, wow, you beat the Man City and all that shit, right? So that was a moment where we should have been putting, our scripts, our ads, everything all over these cities, everywhere. We should have been taking advantage of that moment that we were on TV, that we were in the newspapers in the sports section, and people, I wear my Celtic my training gear to the gym and stuff, and people coming up to me talking, but we're just not consistent over here, and you don't see the branding off anywhere. I can't walk 10 yards down my main street where I live in LA without seeing posters for English Premiership teams and everything. I get it, it's English Premier League, and I'm not comparing us to that, but people like us, people like Celtic, people like the story, the Irish thing, the charitable moment, and we should take advantage of it. We should be doing better branding with the Celtic globally in general. But there's 50 or whatever American Federation clubs, maybe not as many now. Simple things like send us a plaque that says official Celtic Supporters Club Los Angeles. Make them the same for all the clubs. Make them the same. Send posters like Sky Sports do every year to all the pubs in the UK that advertise sport. Just small things they could do for helping the brand, and and even where we sell the strips and how we do that. And Southern California is one of the biggest football crazy states in America. Crazy for it. And I know, listen, Celtic do good work. I'm not saying they don't, especially on the development with I think they've maybe got some stuff here in California or definitely in the East Coast where they work with little academies and they help academies and so on and so forth. But my daughter and Jamie's daughter both play soccer, football. Sorry, I can't believe I've said that. Play football. And, it's massive. I was there last week. I was telling Jamie, and there was 600 kids on a Saturday morning playing football in Los Angeles, and that's in LA, a state that, a city that's got so many other things going on. I know down in San Diego it's massive as well. So I just think there's opportunities but also the fan experience of how, engaging with the clubs. We're a big part of it, and I know a certain guy in Scotland made some comments on one of your podcasts about CSCs, and I'm not really going to comment on what he said, but it is here. There's passion, there's heart. We need to be taken seriously. We need to bring through the younger ones. We need to bring through more younger kids who go straight to video games, or they go straight to English Premier League teams or Spanish teams. Where I live, my neighbourhoods, everyone supports Real Madrid or Barcelona. The kids are all wearing. Mostly Mexican kids are in here. So I think there's just opportunities we should be taking advantage of. And the team coming to America, I know we can't do it every year, but hopefully hopefully we're in the Champions League automatically every year, and we can come to America and build the brand and do all these things. And I know they've done some great stuff this year that they've never done before in the cities that we've been in. So it was a step forward. I think there's more that we've done.
Yeah, and a big hope for me personally is that maybe at some point, somewhere along the track, the club or someone close to the club get wind of some of these conversations, because it does feel like Celtic are missing a trick. At the moment, in terms of what Celtic can do in Scotland, they're maxed out. You can't sell any more season tickets. There's no really wiggle room. There's nowhere to grow. Whereas there's a whole potentially untapped audience, whether that's, hope you don't mind me saying, Joe, an older generation of fan.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Right through Marti and Jamie and your daughters, who are, obviously football fans in their own right, and they're the fans of the future. And the hope is that someone close to the club maybe sits up and goes, do you know what? That's an area that we really need to work closer with, or people that we need to work closer with, and potentially see what's possible. So that is the big hope, absolutely, from these episodes and otherwise. To bring it back to some more football-based stuff.
Jump in there for a minute. I'm going to ask you something there. When you said the guy was on a couple, was that David Lowe?
Yeah, David Lowe.
I used to pick David Lowe up at LAX airport, and he was out here trying to sell shares to Celtic. And he said, David Lowe says then, is what Marty's just wanted, his idea then was to develop Celtic and the marketing side in Scotland. But it never materialised, So I know David well. I've known him over the years during the Vegas things and all that stuff. And so we've always had the idea from Celtic. When I met Desmond Dermott here, he don't worry about it, we're going to take care of you, Joe. No, look at the crap. So it's just, it sounds good at the time, that we're going to do it. We're going to never do it. I just don't believe that from a financial side, they think there's money in America. And I think they missed the boat.
There's an irony, I think, in the fact that you spoke, Joe, about your experiences where people sent back tapes and then satellite came to be in, whenever it was, late 80s, early 90s. I think Fergus McCann himself, let's call Fergus the saviour of Celtic in 1994. He himself was involved in beaming back games during his, early years in business and stuff. But the hope is now, with everything, how connected people are, the modern technology, the links through Celtic TV or Paramount, as Marti mentioned, it just feels like there's more that could and maybe should be done. And hopefully that's something that the club might pay a bit more attention to.
They could even send out, as Marti and Jamie were saying there, they could even send out like a B team, or the second string players.
Oh, yeah.
You don't send out the first team players. I'm not sending them to Los Angeles. You're only 6 hours on a plane from New York, the East Coast. And whether you get a big turnout or not, if you can get it on the TV or you can get it advertised, promoted, you can be bringing out some of these second-hand players. When there's say for talking sake, I know that what do you call him, Brendan might not want to do it, but if you've got a lot of these, we've got 20, 30 players, right, and first team players. Then you've got the guys, the under 18s, under 21s teams. You can be sending them out during the European games or during the international breaks. Okay, well, we even play a friendly team just to get the. Because I used to go to Carney when they used to send a boys' club out back in the 70s. And I remember when Peter Grant and them used to come out and all the ones, there wasn't the 2 men actually end up making it, but Paul McStay came out, Peter Grant, Owen Archdeacon, all them, they were all kids. I've got photos of them as kids. So they could be doing that to promote it, but they don't.
Yeah, and I believe, the opportunities, could be there. As I mentioned, I've spoken to the guys in Pittsburgh and Clinton, amongst others, was across, those games last summer. Yeah. And we named the episode after a quote from Clinton. He said the energy was incredible. He was absolutely buzzing to see those players in the flesh. And again, I'll go back to the example of Marti and Jamie's daughters, amongst other young folks. That would be a dream to go and see Celtic in person. Whether it's your Dies and Maedas or it's your young players coming through or a couple of periphery players, Celtic is Celtic. And to watch them in the flesh wearing the hoops, that would really be something. My last point on it would be that if young people see Celtic at a young age, that sows the seed.
That's it.
And that's what creates the Celtic fans in the future. So we'll see what happens down that road. To bring it back, though, to kind of on-field stuff as such, I just want to come to each of you and ask about your own most enjoyable experience in watching Celtic at the LACSC. So I asked the same question recently, but whether it's a cup final, the Adamida Cup final recently. Joe, you mentioned the Joe Miller Cup final of 1989. There's been trebles, there's been ups, downs, and everything else in between. So I'll stay with you for now, Joe. What's been your one most memorable game at the LACSC?
I think when right out the blue would be when we beat Airdrie, Van Hooijdonk scored, because we hadn't won anything for years and years.
Yeah, 95.
95. That was because we actually were in the Irish Rover watching that game. Mm-hmm. That was probably one of the I think the memories that brings back a lot. But actually seeing they won the tape delay, they won the tape videotape games or tape delay games, actually live. Mm-hmm. And even though we won Van Hooijdonk, we won 1-0. It was Airdrie. Jesus, we should have won 10-0. But but at that time they were running riot. You know what I mean? Whether EB won the paying their tax stuff and all that stuff. Uh-huh. But we never really won much in that era. Think about it. So I think that was one of the first kind of. I think the first cup we won as a club watching a live game. So that was, to me, that was it. That was for me. That would be it. Yeah.
And I think it's a great example because I think, ironically, Joe Miller's winner in 1989 was the last time we won anything until 1995. And I don't know if I'm similar-ish age to Marti and Jamie, but that was huge for me because I came through school taking a pounding.
Oh, I can imagine.
95 was huge for me. Jamie, I'll come to you next. What's been your own highlight?
Yeah, I think the 3-0 Ange midweek game against Rangers was it felt like a tipping point. And it was like a release of emotion. It was an unbelievable game. What a start to the game. But it felt a little bit like when Lambert scored in the 2-1 under Wim Jansen. It felt like we're back. That that's it. And I didn't predict it would be quite as dominant, but that was just the game. Not just the game, but the moment felt like that was us. The last year, the COVID year, which doesn't count anyway. No. It was done, and now Celtic were back exactly where they wanted to be, and we had these Japanese players that were all felt like this. It just felt very, very exciting again, and we haven't really looked back, to be honest, since. So that was a great one, really brilliant game for everyone.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Brilliant example. Marti, what about yourself? What's been the biggie?
Same game Jamie's talking about. That was mental atmosphere in Jocks or Dailies that day. It was just like the atmosphere at Parkhead seemed to come through the screens. And that's one thing, the atmosphere on Celtic TV doesn't come through the screens. It sounds like a library, you don't hear it much. So, but that night, I think we watched it on Paramount Plus and it was just coming through the screens.
Yeah, it was loud.
It was the night before my 40th birthday. I was leaving the next morning as well. I don't really drink midweek watching the games. Had a few too many, forgot I had to drive to dinner that night with my mother-in-law for my birthday. Had to go to sleep when I came home, wake up again, brilliant night, 3-0. It felt like, we were back. And I'm a pessimist when it comes to Celtic. Jamie's the most positive. Jamie and Joe are the two most positive guys.
We have a lot of experience.
I'm a pessimist, unfortunately, when it comes to what big games. It's just my own insecurities when watching them. That game was magic because it's my 40th birthday the next day and had a bit of a party for the next few days after it.
That's growing up in the 90s. That makes us a little bit pessimistic, doesn't it?
We've all been beaten by that. But then you kind of flip it around and, young Celtic fans, and I'm not saying this with any judgment or criticism, it's just a reality. All they've ever known since the turn of the century, give or take, is success. And sometimes you need the downs to enjoy the ups. And I think that night you mentioned under Ange, I'm in total agreement with you. We spoke recently on the show about favourite wins against Rangers. And I'm about the same age as you, Marti. I turned 44 last month, so we're there or thereabouts. And that's up there in the top, certainly top 5, if not top 3 for me. It was just everything around it, nighttime, dark, smoky atmosphere. Celtic try to come back from, the season that let's all forget about, as Jamie says. It was a phenomenal night, and I can absolutely understand why that's a big memory for all of you. As we head towards the end of the episode, guys, I just want to ask really about the kind of hopes for the future, and I'll stay with you on that, Marti. Obviously, yourself and Jamie have taken on the new roles as co-presidents, and I'm sure you come at it with a certain energy and enthusiasm as to what the next few years would bring. So just on that note, what are your hopes and aspirations for the future of the LACSC?
Well, first we're going to fit some new TVs for next season, so we have a better experience of watching. There's that. Again, it's been a music bar and it's not set up for football, so next season it'll be better. But in general, for the next few years, it's just keep at it. Just keep encouraging people to come as much as possible. We need to do a bit more when it comes to the event stuff. We're going to get better at that. It's just been one of those years when we got a bit of momentum, and then the new year hit, and then the fires hit LA, and it just kind of the crowds dispersed a bit. We'll just keep being consistent, mate. Consistent. At the end of the day, like as I always say, our first job is to show the game. Everything else above that is a plus. Making pals, being around people. But first thing every week is make sure the game's on, and then we go from there. We don't have any egos. Don't care about any of that. Just show the game, have a good time, and build the community.
Brilliant stuff, and it goes without saying that you've got our absolute best wishes and backing for the future of the club. Jamie, just in terms of, as I say, the new role for yourself and Marti, it's great to have Joe here with us on the call. And is there a big responsibility on your shoulders? Joe and other guys that you've mentioned have been involved for a number of years, for decades actually, in the LACSC. Is that a big undertaking, a big responsibility for you lads to see it through to the next, couple of decades or whatever?
I mean, I think I know the players were talking about fatigue because we didn't have the winter break this year, but I mean, like it was full on, and you get, getting up very early mornings, trying to do the midweek stuff, and it was just game after game after game. So at the beginning of the season, it didn't feel that way, but because it's not a bar, one of us has to be there to open up. That's the thing. Yeah. So it's on us to make, as Marti said, rule number one is get the game on, and everything else follows. So I think from that side of it, it is a responsibility. But it's something I'm very proud of, and my dad's very, proud of. It's, because it's keeping that culture alive. And I know when I travel, it's really exciting going, whether you're in Madrid or if you're in, if you're in New York or if you're in Lisbon, it's always quite exciting when you go to another supporters club, and you feel, this is, you look around and you see like-minded people and stuff like that. So it is a responsibility, but I think it's so important to keep things going. And then also off the back of that as well, even a few times when I've just been like, I can't be bothered to open, midweek Wednesday game. And then you've got four young lads from Glasgow want to watch the game. That makes it worthwhile, even if there's only 15 people watching the game with you. You've given a service to the rest of the supporters out there. So yeah, it's a lot. It's calmed down a little bit as we go back to sort of one game a week, but it's something that I'm very very happy to do, very proud to do, and it's a big honour to keep the community going and be able to help people from out of town as well.
Brilliant. And again, best of luck to yourself and Marti in the new role. Joe, last word goes to yourself. As I say, it's been a huge part of your life, since you made your journey out to the States. So your final comments on the LACSC and what it means to you.
Oh, it means everything to me. It's part of my life, obviously. I've been a member for 38 years. And it's good it's great that we have the younger guys come in. I don't know how young they are, Jamie and Marti, but younger guys like them, they bring new enthusiasm to the club. They bring a different vision to the club, I think. And then plus through the social media and the business skills, it gives us a lot to look forward to. You know what I mean? And I think we'll keep progressing, obviously, because a lot of the older guys, technology-wise, they're not too clued up on it. You know what I mean? Myself included. But it's good that we have the younger guys who can help us with that side of the development of the club. And then this year we'd like to as well. I would like to get more involved in the charity, do a lot more charity things like that. I'm involved with Joe Mackin at the Kano Foundation.
Yeah. I know Joe. Yeah.
I'm a good friend of Joe's. So I say we've been working on a few ideas over the last year. So then, but the fires and all the stuff that's happened, it's kind of not materialised. But I spoke to Joe a couple of weeks ago. We're still going to keep, going along that route. And I'm involved with Eddie Cantwell and a few other guys that do their channel watching the Philadelphia clubs, and
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I know most of the guys in the clubs, like all the clubs all over America, because I've been involved with the federation over the years. So, and I know most of the. I've never been a member of. I've never been on the committee of the federation, but I've been out of every Vegas since day one, and I know all the guys from all the clubs all over America, and a lot of them the Bronx guys used to live in LA. Billy Ramsey from Boston used to live in LA. So a lot of guys they've left LA and went to other clubs. Martin Connell up in Seattle, and different guys. So it's we're well connected that way. So we can use our influences that way to do more charitable work. I'd like to go along that route maybe next year or whatever. So
yeah,
it's
great to hear that, John, and certainly best of wishes on a personal note with that. And just that aside, guys, it feels like the club is in good hands, and it's an exciting time moving forward. As I say, our very best wishes for everything that goes forward for the LACSC. Lads, all that's left for me is to say a real genuine thank you to Marty, to Jamie and to Joe from the LACSC, and wish you guys all the best for the future, whatever it may bring. Thanks for coming on the Celtic Exchange today, and we'll speak to you again really soon.
Thanks, Dino.